Good evening and welcome to Good News and Interviews with Forrest Tree. My guest tonight is Bill Rice. Bill, thank you for coming.
No, good to see you.
We normally on the show on Monday nights, but last night Pike Liberal Arts played in the state championship basketball game, and we're going to show those highlights here in just a few minutes. But congratulations to Pike Liberal Arts on their state championship.
We talked about it this morning, Forrest. Impressive. I mean, I think they only won by 42 points.
Something like that. Hey, Nate, if you want to, go ahead and show those highlights. Nate Braystead put together the highlights. We had a crew up there filming the game and did some play-by-play, but these are some highlights of last night's basketball game of Pike Liberal Arts state championship game. Should show those up directly.
Away, but recovered a
Nelson with a
shot,
three.
and he hits it.
Two. Pass off to Cross. Cross takes a three. And nothing but net again.
Great pass behind his back.
The ball to Nelson at the top of the key to Cross, and he'll take a three this time. And
Good pressure stolen by Cross. Takes it all the way up and in, and we've got 18-8.
off to Cross. Cross with another three. Can he sink it? No, but put back in by Foster.
Cross with the ball, throws it up. Rebound by the Patriots.
Somehow
away by
Foster.
number 2.
And Davenport for the up and two. Jeffcoat to Cross. Cross for three. And he sinks it. What from
Three.
deep? No good. Rebounded by Jeffcoat to Lee. Lee will take a three and sinks it.
Throws it out to Foster. Foster underneath to Nelson. Nelson up
for
and in.
two.
Takes a pass, throws it in the corner to Nelson. Up
Nelson
for three. Passes off to number 13, Henry. Stolen by Cross, takes it all the way. He's going to be fouled, and the basket is good. Sent to Cross off the right side, goes all the way in. And up and good. 50. Rebounded by Davenport to Cross. And up for a layup. Beautiful pass at Cross. Sets up, back to the top of the key. Jeffcoat, and he hits three.
Pass off to Nelson to Cross. Cross for three. And he's hot.
Holmes back to Hobby. In the corner to Davenport. Jump start. And up and Holmes over to the left side to Chirico for three. Then he hits. To Hobby. Hobby drives. Lays it up. And he hits. Hobby for three. And he hits
Sinks it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. Those were just a few highlights that Nate Braystead, he's one of the specialists here at Troy Cable. He put that together this afternoon, and we'll thank you for that. But we're back with Bill Rice. Bill, want to ask you, your hometown is where, Bill? This is Bill Rice evening on Bill Rice Day.
Troy, Alabama is my hometown.
Were you born in Troy, or?
No, I was born in Birmingham, and my family, mother and father, are from Troy. But we moved around quite a bit when I was growing up. So I born in Birmingham, lived in Clearwater, Florida, lived in Fort Myers, Florida. And then from second grade through most of sixth grade, lived in Opelika, which is a town actually a lot like Troy. I really enjoyed living. Then we briefly lived in Mobile. And then my father, who was working for the Gulf Oil Corporation, bought Chapman Oil Company, which is a gasoline distributorship that my grandfather, Hickey Chapman, owned. And we moved to Troy, which I'd been visiting my whole life because both grandparents lived in Troy. But I did not move to Troy until seventh grade.
What caused you, when you were born in Birmingham, what was all the moves from Birmingham to Florida? What was your
Well,
dad involved?
Dad was a regional marketing rep for the Gulf Oil Corporation. So, back then they sold oil and belts and all the stuff that gas stations sold. He was the marketing guy that worked with those people and did the promotions and like the military or a lot of corporations, they would move him around from time to time. So he bounced around working for this oil company.
And your mother, so she pretty much took care of the family
That's right. She was a homemaker. She was what we'd call
And just out of curiosity, was your dad a marketing major at the University of Alabama, or?
he was, Forrest. He was a business major at the University of Alabama and graduated with a business degree.
And we know a little bit about the history of your dad. He played at Alabama. And what positions did he play in? He played for, who was his position coach? Of course, we know the head coach was Bear Bryant.
He played for Coach Queen at Troy High School and graduated in 1958. And then he was in Coach Bryant's first ever recruiting class at the University of Alabama when Coach Bryant came from Texas A&M.
Okay.
And he played tight end on offense. They played both ways back then. And defensive end, outside linebacker on defense. And his senior year, he kept growing and filling out and getting bigger. And his senior year on offense, they moved him from tight end to offensive tackle. And his coaches were, one of his coaches, his offensive line coach was Charlie Bradshaw.
Okay.
Who became the head coach at Troy University, who also became the head coach at the University of Kentucky. And I think his ends coach was Gene Stallings. Beebe Stallings was his. So
now, Coach Stallings, he played at Texas A&M under Coach Bryant, and then Coach Bradshaw, I guess, played for Coach Bryant when he was at Kentucky.
You got it.
That's right.
I'm impressed.
That's how it is now. That's how your coaching tree follows. And one thing I want to mention,
Stallings was not that much older than the players. He had just finished his playing career, so yeah, he was a young coach.
You can just keep following the trail. It's just like a link. And in today's world, it's the same thing. It's like Enterprise High School. I know they have hired a bevy of local people or people who know. Chuck Dunn's going.
Yeah,
I think,
happy to hear that.
Coach Weeks, who was at Troy University, his wife Alexis is the cheerleader coach at Charles Henderson. He just got a job at Enterprise.
Enterprise has got it going on, don't they?
And then I know Tony Stonecker was at, in that Mobile, Baldwin County area. He's coming. His son, Benson, who helped at Pike Liberal Arts a little bit, I think will be hired or has been hired at Enterprise. So Enterprise is going through a change, and it's like a fresh start.
Well, Enterprise has always been a great town, and but it's rapidly growing. I hear great things about their school system. All their sports programs and extracurricular programs are outstanding. And like you say, there's a lot of people from Pike County that are affiliated with Enterprise now.
Well, Jody and I went on a date Saturday night, and we went to the Enterprise movies, and we saw a movie about redeeming love. It's kind of a, girls would really like it. I'm not going to get into it.
What's the name of the movie?
Redeeming Love. And, they got those big, nice reclining chairs and
seats,
yeah. And there might have been 40. It holds about 40 or 50 people. You're kind of really spread out. It's a nice little place.
We saw West Side Story there at the...
No, yeah, I can remember that in high school. I mean, I remember the movie, the old West Side Story. Is that the one you watched or the new?
The remake, the Steven Spielberg version of... But now you cannot go to a movie in Pike County, which is incomprehensible to me, that a town that had a movie theater for 100 years no longer has one. So if we want to go to the movie, we're going to Enterprise now.
That's right.
It is a neat movie theater.
So in high school, when you went after high school, you graduated what year?
I graduated in 1983, and so from 7th grade to 12th grade, I lived here in Troy, very super happy. Couldn't have had a happier existence those 5 years. Loved Troy. Best thing our family did was move back to Troy. We brought our kids back to Troy. And then I, from graduating from Charles Henderson, I went to the University of Alabama.
And how long were you there? You were there for a couple of years? Or?
For about 2.5 years. And then I quit going to class and was not doing... I can talk about all this now, 30 years later. It's traumatic to think about it when I was going through it. But had a little rough patch there at the Capstone. Had some fun, but I had a rough patch too. And Mom and Dad said, you are coming back to Troy. And so for my last 2.5 years, I went to Troy University. So I was in a fraternity at Alabama. And then I came back to Troy, and I wasn't in a fraternity.
Okay. What fraternity?
Sigma Nu
Sigma Nu.
at Alabama. And I loved Troy. I think I was happier, much happier at the smaller college. And I enjoyed the cross-section of people I could relate to. I liked the faculty better. They knew who you were. And had a wonderful experience at Troy University. And I graduated with a political science degree from Troy University.
And what year did you graduate from Troy?
89.
89. All right, so let's get into, after you graduated from Troy, let's talk about your career path after that and what led you to where you are now.
Well, I went briefly went to law school at Jones Law School, but that wasn't for me. That was a different Jones Law School. It's not as impressive as it is today.
Is that Montgomery?
Yeah. But, it was as up and down as my undergraduate career was. It was kind of surprised me that I could even get in law school, but I did. And for a little while I went, and then I interned at a investment banking firm that Bill Blunt from Troy started and my brother worked at. I lived with my two friends, Charles Bradshaw, who's passed away, who's my best friend, and Wes Gaylord. We lived on Fairview Avenue in Montgomery. While I lived,
Bo's son?
that's Bo and Marcia's son. And so I lived in Montgomery for about a year. And I remember Wes Gaylord came back to our little apartment and said, Bill, I heard that the sports editor at the Messenger has left. You ought to apply for that job.
Who was a sports editor before you?
I think it was a guy named Steve Ellis.
Okay.
Was really good. He was a good journalist, nice guy. He followed Dan Smith.
Okay.
That had been the
Dan
sport.
in his purplish, bluish Volkswagen convertible.
Well, you talk about all-time great Trojans and people. Dan Smith would be at the top of the list.
Maybe a Mount Rushmore would be. Dan Smith would be there.
But he served several years as the Messenger sports editor, then Steve Ellis. And although I had been the editor of my high school newspaper and I loved to write, I had no journalism experience in the real world. I took no journalism courses in college. But I said, well, I can write. I know I can write. And I'm a huge sports fan, so I knew sports. And so I said, yeah, I can do that job, no problem. And I talked to Rick Reynolds, who was the publisher of the Troy Messenger. He was the new publisher. And lo and behold, I was early 20s, no newspaper experience, no journalism. I was a political science major, but he hired me. And so for about 2 years, I was kind of on the job training. There was an editor named David King who was fantastic that taught me really everything I know about newspapers by editing my copy, taking a red pen to your stories. And so for 2 years, I covered Troy athletics, Troy University athletics, Charles Henderson athletics, Goshen athletics, Pike County High School athletics, all the youth teams. This is one person doing all this. Took the pictures, laid out the pages, did the headlines, wrote all the stories, and worked for about 70 or 80 hours a week trying to cover sports in Troy.
Well, your top 5 or 10 memorable things as a sports editor in Troy.
Right.
What were those? Let's hit the top 5.
I was thinking about that before I came on your show, Forrest, and it's some big things happened in those 2 years. On Mike's show, we've been talking about this amazing accomplishment of the Don Maestri basketball team when they scored 258 points in one game against a school called DeVry Institute.
And I saw Julie at the half shell the other night, and she walked by, and I said, "That's Julie Maestri."
What a great lady.
And then she said they were in the back, so I saw David Felix and his wife Mary, and I saw Sharon and Don Maestri. And I taught with Sharon when we were at the middle school together, but David Felix did his internship as a student teacher at Goshen High School. I think I was about a junior. And of course, in physical education classes, he would play basketball with us. You know, he wasn't any. He was about 5'8", 5'9", about our size, and we would be on him like glue. And all he had to do was just step back, let it go, nothing but net. We couldn't.
He was a phenomenal player.
He was a great high school track or cross country basketball. Of course, I saw him play several times for West Basilia. Him and Carly Hollis and Marvin Sales and David Felix, the trio.
I had not moved back to Troy yet when he played, but he had just finished playing, and I have heard David Felix stories and Carl Hollis stories my whole life, so I know he was a great player.
But the 258.
The most memorable thing I think I've ever covered is 51 three-pointers in one game. Plus, that was such a fun team of likable guys, and Coach Maestri and Coach Felix were just so great to work with, and they were constantly trying to promote the program. And that was great teams. I mean, they didn't just score a lot of points. They won conference championships and competed for national championships. Troy hired Coach Blakeney when I was sports editor, and they made the move to Division I sports, which is one of the biggest events that's happened in Troy. And so I remember writing a lot of columns saying, is this a good idea or not? Can we actually do this? Fortunately, I came out on the right side of history. I think I said, yes, this is a bold, brave move, but we're going to prosper. It's going to be the best thing we've ever done. So I was kind of there on the ground floor when they did that. And youth sports is big, Forrest. I mean, Dixie ball was huge when I was a sports editor.
I wish I was a kid in today's recreational area.
Oh, it's so much bigger now than when, I mean, well, for one thing, they didn't have girls playing back then. It was just boys. But as good as baseball was in Troy, I do not think a Troy Summer League tournament team had ever won a state championship. They'd been close. I was on a team that finished second. Well, when I was sports editor, there was a Dixie boys team, that's 13 and 14-year-olds, that not only won the state championship, they blew out everybody. They went to the World Series in a town called Rock Hill, South Carolina, which was a big, big deal. I mean, this is players like Marcus Bryant from Brundage, Willie Wright, Andy Blair, Al Renfro, Jamie Price, Blair, Courtney Frazier. Just everybody on that team was a outstanding player. Well, I went in with Andy Murphy, who did some writing for the Messenger too. We went up to Rock Hill, South Carolina for a week, and Troy won that World Series. So I would say that 258 game, that Dixie Boys World Series championship team.
Did Troy Cable go?
Troy Cable covered it. You're right.
Okay.
And
There's
that was
some footage somewhere.
That was the first time that Troy Cable had covered a big out-of-town event. And I can guarantee you there were 12 state champions up there competing for the World Series. Troy, Alabama was the only town that had its own TV crew up there. I think they flew up in the Wiley Sanders plane to Bogey. They used to call this Bogey Vision. All the events that Troy Cable would cover, and that's because Bogey Freeman, the son of Harold Freeman, the founder of this company, was usually on the camera. And Bogey went up there. I think Mike Amos went up there and called the games. So those are some of the events that I enjoyed covering as a young sports editor, and that's what got me in the newspaper business, is being a sports editor.
All right. I tell you, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Bill Rice Jr., and we'll be right back after these messages. Stay tuned.
Want a new Ram or Jeep? Bring it! But you have no credit or bad credit? Bring it! We say yes! Yes! Bring it to Premier Chrysler Jeep Ram in Troy! Right now, save up to $10,000 on Rams and Grand Cherokees. Shop PremierTroy.com. During our Bring It sale. Nobody beats a Premier deal. Nobody!
A personal touch, a high level of trust. Whether it's checking and savings accounts personal or business loans, or our local friendly service. That's what Troy Bank and Trust customers expect. But now we offer more. Free identity theft protection for our new and existing customers, protecting your family's time, money, and good name from identity theft. Because protecting your identity is now a big part of our identity.
If you've had an accident or just want a new look for your vehicle, come see us at Troy Paint and Body, where we do it right the first time. Our staff has more than 100 years combined experience and can handle repairs and paint work on any make or model. We also offer a lifetime guarantee as long as you own your vehicle. Now that shows we stand behind our work. And our 24-hour towing service means we're here when you need us. So come see us at Troy Paint and Body, located on South Brundage Street in Troy beside the post office. Troy Paint and Body, where we may meet by accident, but you'll be glad we did.
Brundage Building Supply and Paint Center at Jackson Hardware. 120 years and counting of real customer service with a smile and a heartfelt thank you for visiting with us. PPE, lumber, paint, building supply and roofing, guns, ammunition, American-made items, and oh, by the way, hardware.
It's a world famous Bring It sale. Yes. Upside down on your vehicle? Bring it. No credit, bad credit? Bring it. To Premier Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram and Troy. We say yes. Yeah. Pre-owned vehicles just $29 down or $99 a month during our Bring It sale. Nobody beats a Premier deal. Nobody.
7 stories of issues.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Good News and Interviews with Forrest Tree. And my guest tonight is Bill Rice. You see him a lot in the mornings with Mike Amos on Today in L.A. And again, Bill, thank you for coming. A couple of questions I want to have for you. For the Troy teachers that you had here in Troy, Alabama, and I know you have a love for writing and critical thinking and those kinds of things, but name some of your teachers from Troy, middle, high school, or on the collegiate level, coaches that made an impact on your life.
Boy, that's a good question for us. They were all great. I mean, I coming from 7th grade, new kid in town, I could start with Miss Burks, was an English teacher I had, Miss Little. I can remember Miss Tompkins. You know Phyllis Tompkins?
Phyllis Tompkins.
You remember as a PE coach, but she was a science teacher when I was as a...
I saw her a year ago this past January at Starkville, Mississippi. She came to see me. Abby and I were over there. Abby had a photography workshop that she went to, and so I called Paige Tompkins, Dr. Paige Tompkins, who's with the University of Georgia, and I called and got up with her, and she gave me her mother and dad's phone number, and COVID was still in effect, but Miss Paige came to our motel, and we sat in the lobby and had a good visit. And Coach Tompkins is doing well, but Miss Phyllis Tompkins,
she always I tickled her. She liked me. I remember Coach Tompkins because he was on Coach Bradshaw's staff, and I was real close to the Bradshaws as an assistant defensive coordinator at Troy University. Coach Whitman, Forrest, I mean, your mentor was had the best PE program in America without question, and so I love being a part of that. Coach Miller, that was his...
Steve Miller?
His underling was a great coach in himself. Everybody, Willie Thomas was the principal. So I went from not knowing anybody in 7th grade and being the new kid in town to being elected class president at the end of my 8th grade year. That's how far I came in 1 year. Then high school, I loved writing, and I was on the newspaper staff, the Trojan Myths, for 3 years. Miss Swisher, Bobby Swisher, was the teacher and sponsor of the journalism program, which was very good. I would say Miss Morgan, I remember her, was a great math teacher. Martha Barnett was a great science teacher. You shouldn't name names. Coach Whitman's wife was.
Miss Janice, I had her at Goshen. She was an English teacher.
Miss Island was an English teacher. Miss McKellar was an English teacher. Miss Daniels, which became Miss Enzi, was a real popular social studies teacher.
Becky.
Mr. Lockler was now a pastor, was a great history teacher. Coach Jeffcoat was the football coach, and I was a scrub young player on the 1980 state championship football team.
Mm-hmm.
So Mr. Gunner, Herman Gunner, still lives here in Troy. He was our principal. Miss Wagner was.
Who was the superintendent, Bill? Do you remember?
At one time, it was Mr. Baker.
James A. Baker. He was the principal at Goshen when I was there. He never got a hold of me. I was good.
That's a good question. Who was the superintendent? I had no dealings with the
I was just curious.
superintendent. Eddie McCarter was the basketball coach. Rick Moody, who I'm Facebook friends with, was a coach. So my whole experience at Charles Henderson High School and Charles Henderson Middle School was just spectacular. I probably knew every person in my class and every person in the school, and was really blessed to grow up in that time in that place.
Well, for me, Bill, I loved going to school, and I loved my teachers. I mean, I could list every one of the teachers I ever had in high school and college. But I just loved going to school.
How many did you have in your graduating class?
About 60, 62, somewhere there.
We had 135, I think, in my class, which was a small class. So you got to know everybody. Really got to know everybody in the whole school, it seemed like.
Well, Bill, after the Troy Messenger, what was the next step in your life as far as a job? And before we get into that, let's talk about your wife and children real quick. And I don't want to forget that, but
well, I got married very late in life. I thought I was going to be a bachelor for my whole life, and God said nope, and He introduced me to this Troy University graduate named Carrie Fryer. When I was
Teacher of the Year.
Charles Henderson
Charles Henderson High School Teacher of the Year.
Yeah, she teaches
Congratulations.
She teaches in Miss Whitman's old room.
She teaches English?
She teaches English.
She teaches English.
But I've been married for about 11 years to Carrie Fryer, and we have 2 children. One of them's right over there. Jack's 6 years old, and Maggie is 10 years old. Maggie's in 4th grade, and Jack is in kindergarten at Troy City Schools.
Who's Maggie's teacher?
I can't remember. Miss blah, 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 blah. She's a great teacher. Okay. Maggie loves her.
Okay.
But who is it? Miss Vargas.
Who's yours?
Miss Schultz.
Miss Schultz.
So Miss Vargas and Miss Schultz.
And now your brothers, Bill. So you and Carrie have been married 11 years.
Yep. We met in skipping forward. Well, we can talk about it. I started my own newspaper, which I kept going for about 8 years, and then eventually I moved to Montgomery, and Carrie is from Montgomery, and I met Carrie there, and she's a school teacher, and she taught at Stanhope Elmore, and then she was in the first teaching class at Pike Road School when they started the school system there.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then... boy, that's a story there, which we won't tell.
I think that's who Charles Henderson plays. The girls play Pike Road. They play them next in the playoffs.
Well, man,
basketball.
Gosh.
I think the boys are playing tonight.
Well, they're great in all sports. I can remember their very first junior varsity football game because Carrie was the cheerleading sponsor. And all I can say is they have come a long way in sports. They're already a powerhouse in all the sports. But we lived in Pike Road, and so we have seen the growth of Pike Road, which is amazing.
Now, when you left the Messenger, then your next step, did you do the Troy Progress, or was
Yep,
that?
I was going to write the Great American Novel, and I wanted to be a columnist, really, and write for a column for the Birmingham News or something, but that never happened. So I lived at Lake Martin at my parents' lake house for a little while, and then when I ran out of money, I had to come back to Troy, and Don Herring and his wife Karen hired me back in the newspaper business at the Troy Progress, the weekly paper. So I'd worked at a daily newspaper. Back then, the Messenger came out 5 days a week. And then I worked for a weekly paper. So I was the sports editor at the Messenger, but at the Troy Progress, I was a feature human interest news writer for a couple years. And then I later went to work for the Pike County Chamber of Commerce as the membership director, working for Marshall Gaylord. And then I started my own, Bobby and I, my brother, started the Troy Citizen. When Don Herring, he sold out to the Troy Messenger and closed the Progress. And so then I competed against my old employer, the Messenger. Nothing against them. I just wanted to be in the newspaper business. And for about 7 or 8 years, I was the publisher and editor of the Troy Citizen newspaper. I finally closed it. That almost was my undoing. It was a labor of love, but I was doing every job you could do in the newspaper business and had no real life or social life.
That's probably why you were still a bachelor.
That is exactly why. I mean, I was...
Even those days with the Messenger, because you did it all.
Well, I would say, in the week, I would write 6 or 7 stories a week. I would sell every ad. I would lay out the paper. I would cover the beauty pageants. I would deliver the papers that night at 2 o'clock in the morning. Just talking about it just makes me want to crawl under the bed and get in the fetal position. So I never made any money. Fortunately, I paid most of my bills and never declared bankruptcy, but then I closed it, raised the white flag on the Troy Citizen, and I went to work for Cumulus Radio selling radio commercials. So somewhere along the way, I learned to, by default, how to sell ads.
Okay.
Because I couldn't find anybody else that could do it, so I had to do it myself. And so for 2 years, I worked for Mix 103, WLWI, Sports Radio 740, all the Cumulus 7 stations, News Talk Radio, which had, and learned a lot about ad sales.
How many years did you do that?
2 years in Montgomery in the Colonial Bank building in downtown Montgomery by the fountain. Mm-hmm. And that's where I met Carrie, who briefly was a sales rep just like me, fresh out of college. And now she didn't stay there, but I was sweet on her and really liked her and became friends with her. And then she left and went and got her teacher certificate like you did and became a school teacher. I lost track of her until, skip forward 4 or 5 years later, I had a booth at the old Alabama town selling some artwork. That was a little side business venture of mine. Have you seen those cityscape paintings of Troy and Auburn and Montgomery? My mom did one of Troy, all the landmarks of... Well, I did one of those. I found an artist that did one of Montgomery and then later of Auburn. And I could sell them. I made prints and I made a good little side income. But I'd have to go to these events where you could sell artwork and just have a booth and, and I'm sitting there, I'm getting ready to put up my booth. After a long day, I probably sold 3 prints and made $300. And out of the blue, somebody said, Bill Rice. And I looked up and it's Carrie Fryer, who I have not seen in about 4 years. Wow. Who I met at Cumulus Radio. And I called her up that night. And we had a date at Sinclair's in Cloverdale, a brunch the next morning. And here I am, what was I, 40, getting ready to turn 40 years old. And I think 6 months 5 or 6 months later, we were engaged. And then a couple months after that, Maggie was on the way.
There you go.
So and then here's how the world works for us. I was burned out. You can probably sense that I was burned out keeping this newspaper open. And I also had a monthly magazine called Pikes Peak, and I was driving down Highway 231. I remember where I was. I was like right in front of Radio Shack. You remember where the old Radio Shack was? And I'm listening to the radio. I don't know which Cumulus station, but they were always looking for sales reps, and they had a commercial on that said, do you have a good personality and communication skills? Cumulus Radio is looking for advertising reps. And I said, my goodness, I could do that. And it said, call Joy Melton, and it gave the phone number, and that's when cell phones had just come out. On a whim, I said, called the number and said, hi, I'm Bill Rice. I can do this job.
You got to sell yourself.
And she said, well, come talk to me. And that is the day I shut down the Troy Citizen, moved to that's when I got a life back. Then I started working an 8-to-5 job and kind of became the old Bill. But I got out of Troy, moved to Montgomery, and I was up there for about 10 or 11 years. Carrie, I get married to her. She teaches at Stanhope Elmore, Pike Road School. Then she comes and she commutes and teaches at Charles Henderson. And then we said, the heck with that. We got a family. Let's raise them in Troy. And I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, we moved back to Troy. And here I am.
Well, let's take another commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to bring Jack on the set for just a few minutes. And then we'll close shop. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Good News and Interviews. I'm Forrest Lee, and this is Bill Rice, and we'll be back after these messages.
Attention! Attention! PremierTroy.com. We want your trade. We'll buy your car. Whether you purchase a vehicle from us or not, pre-owned car values are at an all-time high. Trade your car for cash or a newer vehicle. It's your choice. Premier wants your car. Nobody beats a Premier deal. Nobody!
A personal touch, a high level of trust. Whether it's checking and savings accounts, personal or business loans, or our local friendly service. That's what Troy Bank and Trust customers expect. But now we offer more. Free identity theft protection for our new and existing customers, protecting your family's time, money, and good name from identity theft. Because protecting your identity is now a big part of our identity.
If you've had an accident or just want a new look for your vehicle, come see us at Troy Paint and Body, where we do it right the first time. Our staff has more than 100 years combined experience and can handle repairs and paint work on any make or model. We also offer a lifetime guarantee as long as you own your vehicle. Now that shows we stand behind our work. And our 24-hour towing service means we're here when you need us. So come see us at Troy Paint and Body, located on South Brundage Street in Troy beside the post office. Troy Paint and Body, where we may meet by accident, but you'll be glad we did.
Troy Cable is the leader in smart home security, giving you solutions to monitor, protect, and automate your home. Troy Cable Security keeps your property safe with 24/7 professional monitoring and emergency response. Control thermostats and lighting remotely, which allow options for saving energy and money. Control access to your home remotely with integrated controls for door locks. You can even add our smart home cameras, which allow you to see what you care about instantly. Troy Cable Security. You love them, protect them.
Where should you go to find the best deals on a vehicle? Anywhere, anytime? PremierTroy.com. Shop our huge selection. PremierTroy.com. Pick your next vehicle. Pick your payment. Yes. Shop, save, and buy. PremierTroy.com. Nobody beats a Premier deal. Nobody. Body.
Welcome back to Good News and Interviews. I'm Forrest Lee. This is Bill Rice. What's your name?
Jack.
Jack Rice. Jack, when is you are how old?
6.
He's 6 years old. And tell everybody when your birthday is.
January the 6th.
And where are you going on vacation in about a month?
Disney World.
Disney World. Do you know what state that is that starts with an F? What is it?
Florida.
Florida. Wow. That's great. You've got some big old hands. Let me see your hands. Woo. Now, have you got a favorite food? What is it?
Chicken.
You like chicken.
Yep.
From what place?
From school.
From school? Hey, do you have a favorite restaurant that you eat in Troy that you go out and eat, or Mama brings home some food, or Daddy? What's that restaurant?
McDonald's.
McDonald's.
What about Mama Goldberg's? Like that?
Yeah.
Mama Goldberg's? Who's your teacher at Troy Elementary?
Miss Schultz.
Miss Schultz. And what grade are you in?
Kindergarten.
He's in kindergarten. So you're 6 years old in kindergarten. Have you got a favorite number? You got a favorite number?
Yeah.
What is it?
Tell Forrest that you can count to 100 by 10.
Count.
10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100.
100.
He knows his numbers.
Have you got a favorite color?
Yeah.
What is it?
Blue.
Blue. That was my favorite color too. Still is.
What's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie is
What's the one we've been watching lately?
Encanto.
Encanto. It's the new Disney movie.
Okay.
Stands for Enchanted. What's the song that you and Maggie have been singing all the time?
We don't talk about family.
Sing it. We don't talk about.
No.
Now, so you have a sister?
Yeah.
What's her name?
Jack.
No.
No, your name's Jack.
Maggie.
Maggie. Okay. And so, who's the hardest to wake up in the morning, Jack or Maggie?
Maggie.
Maggie's the hardest to get up.
I vouch for that.
Okay. Who falls asleep the easiest?
Me.
Normally he falls asleep between Carrie and I in the big bed, as we call it, our king-size bed.
Okay.
And man, I'm gonna tell you, he gets perpendicular in the night. And I tell no matter how many times I tell him keep your feet this way, he is going to get turned sideways, and he's going to be kicking me in the middle of the night. But that's okay.
I don't even know.
Wave to everybody.
All right, tell everybody goodbye.
We'll see you tomorrow. Okay. See you tomorrow. All right, I'm going to ask you Daddy some more questions, okay?
All right,
We'll sit on the couch.
You did good.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jack. Jack Rabbit.
Well, that's his nickname. His nickname is Jack Rabbit, the Jack Rabbit. And you know who the Jack Rabbits are? South Dakota. I think it's South Dakota State.
Dakota, okay. Now, Bill, your brothers, what's the sequence of the Rice boys?
I'm the middle son. There's 3 boys. Rush is my older brother. He graduated from Charles Henderson in 1979.
Okay.
Some of his classmates were Mark Davis.
I know Mark.
Danny Lee watches our show every morning. Steve Beasley. Girls you would know were like Kim Carter, became a great cheerleader at Auburn. Tracy Schroeder was a majorette at the University of Alabama. Darren Faison was a great basketball player in Rush's class.
That's class of 79.
Class 79, and then I was class of 83, and then the baby that gets away with everything was Bobby, and he was class of 86, and I'll give you some people in his class. That would be Sam Drake, Kent Hendricks, Chris McCracken, Little Danny Lee, Carmen Beard, were a couple of people I remember from Bobby's there.
Another Alabama cheerleader.
Carmen Beard was right, yeah.
Now, Bill, let me ask you, Bobby is here in Troy, and
he is the Bobby and I started the Troy Citizen, so I got Bobby into the newspaper business. He had been in sales, but not media sales before that. And then he left. He stayed with the Troy Citizen a couple years, and then he went to work for the Advertiser in Gannett in Montgomery. And then he moved around with the Gannett Company. He actually worked at Gannett corporate headquarters in Washington, D.C., or just outside of Washington, D.C., I think in Arlington, Virginia, or McLean, Virginia, just somewhere right across the border. He was up there when they had 911. Bobby saw
9/11. Yeah.
He saw a fireball when the airplane crashed into the Pentagon.
Wow.
He saw it and heard it. And called my mom and told her that it just happened. But then Bobby
was living in Troy at the time. Your mother was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Then Bobby went to Melbourne, Florida. He got out of Gannett and went for the Dallas Morning News. He was their classified ad manager. Then he went to the Pensacola newspaper. And at one point he was in Lafayette, Louisiana. That's where he met his wife, Molly.
Now, the kids, where were they born? The two, your niece and nephew, that's Will and... what's the little girl's name? I can see her. I don't teach her.
Will and Eleanor.
Eleanor.
Gosh, don't let me forget my niece's name. They were born in, I don't know where they spent a lot of time in Pensacola and Gulf Breeze, Florida. And then Bobby went to, he got out of the newspaper business and for a couple years ran a party equipment rental business.
Okay.
And then he got back in the newspaper business. He was the publisher of the Tuscaloosa News in Tuscaloosa. And he left the Tuscaloosa News when Boone newspaper offered him the publisher of the Troy Messenger, and he's also helping run some other Boone newspaper owns about 30 papers around. So about a year or two ago, Bobby, after being away from Troy forever, comes back, and he is now running our newspaper, which is an important job.
And your older brother is?
He is an investment banker working for himself. He does work for the city of Troy.
Okay.
And his office is in downtown Montgomery. He's been a financial investment banker for more than 30 years. Real smart guy. He married a Montgomery girl, Marty, and Marty Chambers. And
how many children do they have?
They have one. They have one daughter. And so it's the three Rice boys all graduated from Charles Henderson. Bobby graduated from Troy University. Rush graduated from Alabama. And my mom and dad they went to Troy High School and graduated together. They were they were never dated in high school, but were close friends.
Right. Did your mother go to the University of Alabama?
She started off at Florida State. She was an artist, and they had a real good art program. And then after her freshman year, or after they graduated, she started dating my dad. Mm-hmm. And Dad was at Alabama, and so she transferred to Alabama to be with Dad. So she ended up at Alabama, too.
Now, do any of the grandchildren have an artistic touch to them? Like
my niece, Chapman, is good.
That's her name, Chapman?
Chapman.
Your mother's maiden name?
That's right, named after the... My mother was a Chapman, which is a well-known family in Troy, and my niece is Chapman Rice, and I didn't get any of that artistic talent, that's for sure.
Now, Bill, what exactly do you do now? I mean, what is your...
I call myself a freelance writer. I write. That means you write and research the stories you want to write, but then you've got to sell them to a magazine or somebody. And so I do stories for national publications, online publications, and I've done several local stories for the Troy Messenger and Troy Life magazine. I did a story on Colin and Connie McCrary's son Griff that was in Golf magazine. That was a well-known publication. I've had stories in the American Conservative. At Zero Hedge is a big well-known website. Real Clear Politics. Uncover. I've done a lot of COVID stories.
Is there a particular subject matter or story that you're writing now that you can share with us, or that you may?
Well, I would. Some would say I've been obsessed for about 2 years with COVID stories. So I've got one that if you go to uncoverdc.com, uncover DC is in District of Columbia.com. There's one of my stories is up right now. It's comparing the COVID vaccine to the flu vaccine. But as far as big stories, the main COVID story I did, and it's, some people would say I'm controversial because I disagree with a lot of the prescriptions of the public health officials. I don't think we've managed this pandemic the way we should have. But the first story that got me interested on COVID, I don't think is that controversial. It's a story I did about presenting arguments and evidence that this virus actually started months before we had these lockdowns. In March of 2020, I found a couple from Sylacauga, Alabama, who both had COVID in December 2019. They had COVID before the Wuhan outbreak in China. One of these guys nearly died. He was in the hospital for 28 days on a ventilator and an ECMO machine. His wife was sick too, and they both had the antibodies that proved that they had it. They had all the symptoms and all the medical tests, everything about COVID. Checklist, especially Tim McCain had it. Well, I wrote that story, and Uncovered DC published it. They're the only people that would publish that story. Because, why do you think that is? I sent
your side of the story heard, or
I sent it to every
blinders?
Publication that runs freelance material or accepts freelance material. Well, the story that COVID was spreading in America in December and November does not fit the narrative. I quickly found out that this virus is so politicized, and despite all the copious evidence that I have found of not just Tim and Brandy McCain obviously having COVID, but a lot more people I've found too, it's like you can't say, and one question I have is, you mean the CDC and Anthony Fauci and the Alabama Department of Public Health, they didn't know that these people had this virus? They certainly haven't talked to these people or questioned them or had any. Wouldn't you think if somebody said, this person has all the symptoms of COVID, they've had 2 or 3 positive antibody tests, don't you think you at least need to go talk to them and see, look at their medical records. Look, did they have pneumonia? Did they have the elevated D-dimer levels? All the little things that people had.
Did they have the antibodies in their bloodstream?
Yes, and the gold standard antibody test, and they didn't fade, and they've had multiple positive antibody tests. So they had antibodies. People in New Jersey had them. People in California. People in Oregon. People in South Florida. People that donated blood to the American Red Cross. You know, they saved that blood for us. And then they finally went back and tested some blood from December, and 2% of the blood they saved had antibodies, which means in December 2019, people had. Now, this is what I'm telling y'all is I still think to this day, it's the scoop, biggest story I've ever had in my life. And for the life of me, I don't know why. It's, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, all over the story.
Talking about stories, the state of Alabama or the United States, what are some of the, and we got just a few minutes, some of the big factors you think that are facing our nation right now?
Before I got started on my COVID research, I did a lot of stories on inflation. And, I think a lot of the government numbers on COVID are kind of suspect. Well, I've also always thought that a lot of the government numbers on the economy, on unemployment, on inflation are suspect. And I wrote a story on shrinkflation.
Oh.
That's when the size of your peanut butter container gets small. This one hadn't been shrunk. Well, that is a way to conceal inflation, but I've been commenting and researching and writing on inflation, saying it's worse than people realize for years. Going back to the presidential campaigns of Ron Paul, he thinks like I do.
Cereal boxes.
Well, now I've just said people now it's going to hit us because we are printing all this money. At some point, the prices are going to go sky high. Well, now in the last year, all the stuff I've been worried about has come to fruition. So you say what I think are some of the big issues. Inflation is terrible now, but we ain't seen nothing yet.
Food, gas.
Shortages. I mean, everybody just open your eyes. There's shortages of everything.
I've got a cousin who, she and her husband were going to build a small home outside of Goshen, but they met with a contractor this past weekend, but they're going to be on hold because there's no telling what the price of wood's going to be. A contractor cannot give a good quote because we have no idea what the price of lumber and materials are going to cost.
Oh.
It may change overnight.
Well, would you ever thought that you go to a restaurant and you're almost halfway surprised when the dining room is open, where they've got the help, grocery store shortages, car parts shortages. So it's...
Hey, Jack, come here just a minute before we close.
There's a lot of things on the economic front that are interesting, and I would say that let's all be tough. And I will say that I think Troy and Alabama are well positioned compared to a lot of our other states to weather this storm.
Hand me that hat right there. Hey, Jack, this is called Flowers Real Estate Team. Put flowers in your yard, and they're one of our sponsors. And I've got 2 hats. But this one you can have. It's a brand new hat, and it'll adjust in the back. Let's see how that looks on your. Ooh, yeah. You look like a baseball player. But anyway, come up here where they can see you and wave to everybody. We've got about another minute. I want to thank Bill and his son Jack for coming on the show. And Jack, thank you for being so patient with Daddy.
But hey, I want to end on an upbeat note. Mike Amos and I took a ride around Troy today, and man, there's all kind of houses going up and businesses, and so it's not all bleak and gloom and doom. I see people moving from states like California and New York and looking for places like Alabama and Troy, College Town. So
basketball teams are doing good locally, and
I think we couldn't be in a better place than where we are at this point.
We got about 30 seconds. Again, thank you, Bill, for coming. You can see this replay tomorrow night from 9 to 10 o'clock at night. And I want to thank Jack for coming. And ladies and gentlemen, join us next Monday night for Good News and Interviews One of my guests will be Clint Free with Upward Bound here in Troy, Alabama. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you later on. Good night.
Enjoyed it.